Is the government tackling obesity correctly? Now, Boris Johnson has said that he's going to scrap the ban on buy one, get one free junk food deals and advertising before 9 p.m. to help poorer families during the cost of living crisis. Now, this ban was originally put in place to combat the ever-growing obesity crisis. But what do you think? Is that the way to do it? Is banning things and advertising? Are we that stupid that we'll watch an advert and then eat the food? Yesterday, celebrity chef Jamie Oliver protested outside Downing Street against the lifting of the ban. During the protest, he said, to use the cost of living as an excuse is wrong. It's completely unfair. We want to put child health first. The strategy was looking world-class, and now it doesn't. It's our job to put it all back together again and make sure that we can build a better future for our kids. Does Jamie have a point? Would this ban be of any significance, or is this the wrong approach altogether? So there's been huge research. Cancer Research UK said that obese people will outnumber healthy weight people within 5 years. So what do you think? Is he right? What's the best way to prevent a future crisis? So that's what I'm asking for this debate. Is the government tackling obesity correctly? So joining me now is the chair of the National Obesity Forum, Tam Fry. Tam, welcome. Thank you. It's really good to see you. Now, first of all, the ban. What is the relevance? What's the reasoning for having a ban like that, in your view?
Well, there's no reason. And the really important thing is that William Hague, who was one time leader of the Conservative Party, has called this issue morally indefensible. It's got no economic sense to it at all, because these bog-offs, according to the Department of Health itself, leads to overconsumption and therefore more money being spent on food than is necessary. And we're 20% over what we should be in terms of what we're eating, and these bog-offs are just going to make it worse, and therefore they should be cancelled.
You think so? Because some people would say that, look, it's human nature. People will buy things and eat things. You're never going to stop people from doing that. So why? Surely there's no place for the government to be involved in this sort of...
Well, I think the interesting thing is also today the news that Tesco has decided that Johnson is wrong. So the Tesco are now flying in the face of the government strategy, because actually Tesco, from the business point of view, know that the bog-offs are good business, but they're more responsible than that. They're saying certainly it's adding to the obesity problem, particularly with children, and therefore we're going to stop it. And I hope that a lot of people follow Tesco's lead.
Well, I think Sainsbury's are also doing something like that as well. But, you know, once again, though, people will... Look, I mean, I used to train people in terms of fitness and health and everything else like that. I'd train people who were overweight, people who were obese. And the problem wasn't... They were basically eating junk food, but me saying banning something or banning adverts or something like that wouldn't really have an impact on what they will do. They'll still do the same thing. So I don't really see the relevance of the government being involved on this particular level.
Well, the government has got to do something because, unfortunately, since 2020, when Johnson introduced his long-awaited strategy, things have just got worse and worse and worse. I mean, children, which is my particular issue, the obesity level's gone up by 4%. Now, 4% was 4% more than any year since 2020. So, therefore, if you will, they've got to do something, because the cost of the whole operation is now unbelievable. £58 billion a year we spend on obesity and diabetes and the other related problems. So action is needed. We've had 25 years of messages about people behaving responsibly and eating properly and choosing and this and that and the other thing. It just hasn't worked. So we've got to try something now immediately. Johnson's got a problem because he promised everybody that he would halve childhood obesity by the year 2030. He doesn't have a chance of doing that. And that's not just me saying that. That's the National Audit Office, who looked at the strategy and said it is not fit for purpose.
So the strategy of... His strategy is not fit for purpose. So the strategy of banning junk food ads before 9 o'clock and also banning bog-offs is actually a good strategy, you would say?
I think that's a good strategy. We've got to try it. I mean, in the end, I may be proven wrong, but I doubt it, because, in fact, people wouldn't advertise if they didn't think that it would have a big effect. So cutting out the advertising is actually knocking off one of those hurdles which people have to get over, and hopefully they will start choosing wisely proper food.
Well, let me have a chat with Lucy Barrister. Now, Lucy Barrister, she's a psychologist. She's there on the line. Let's see what she has to say. Now, Lucy, Tam says that he seems to think that actually it's a good idea to have the ban and that Boris should actually keep that ban, and people like Tesco and also Sainsbury's are acting responsibly by ensuring that these bog-offs don't happen. Well, is that right in terms of the psychology? I'm thinking somebody who's overweight isn't going to take any notice of that.
Well, there is also the possibility of the reverse psychology, which is that the more you tell somebody not to eat a certain thing or not to behave in a certain way, that's the very time when they're going to think, this is what I want to do. And sometimes that's why diets don't work, because they're too restrictive. They end up making foods sound very forbidden and very naughty. And at that point, then people think, oh, well, actually, yes, I would like to give in to temptation. Far more importantly, is around education, and that's where the government could be doing more. It could be actually creating a whole generation of people who know how to value food, know where it comes from, know how to cook it, prepare it, and actually can understand the enjoyment of cooking food. And the irony is that we're a nation of cookery food program watchers. So they're very, very cheap programs to make, and people love watching them, but they don't necessarily translate that into their own behaviour. But the problem is that for quite a lot of people...
Yeah, so hang on a minute. So let me just get this straight. So in your view, banning, so this ban, Boris, was he right or was he wrong to lift that ban in your view?
I still want to make sure that it isn't easy to buy really dreadful food, and that's why the ban is probably very useful. And that's why people like Tesco and Sainsbury's have actually said this is what's going to help our nation going forward.
In your view, though, do you think that ban psychologically will work for people who are overweight or obese? Do you think that ban...
It's just too complicated. The problem is that eating issues are way more complicated than saying if we just got rid of this one thing, then everything would be okay. Because disordered eating...
So do you think the government are approaching it in the right way by initially trying to ban things, banning adverts and 2-for-1 offers? Would you say that is correct?
They definitely have to eliminate the temptation, but then at that point you then have to look at the supermarkets and say, how come every time there's a supermarket checkout you're filling the aisles along the side with really unhealthy food?
Well, why couldn't they do... Well, they could keep the bog-offs but do it on healthy food. Listen, Lucy, I want to get back to Tam. Thank you very much for your thoughts. That's Lucy Beresford. She's a broadcaster and a psychotherapist. Tam, she's sort of partially saying that is part of the solution, but there's a lot more to go.
Well, she made two very important points. First of all is education. People are woefully mal-educated about food. What is good food? They don't know where it comes from. They don't know how to grow it. And really problematically, they don't know how to cook it. You and I cook, I'm sure, but there are millions of houses around the country that don't have a workable kitchen, don't have a kitchen table, and they rely on processed food, which is unhealthy, in order to survive. And so you've got a huge job to do in terms of teaching children young enough so that they get the good habits and hopefully not the bad habits while they're still in their very informative years.
We've been talking about this for years, though, haven't we? And nothing's really happening. It just doesn't make any sense, the whole banning thing. How about the manufacturers? Why are they not tackling them?
Well, the manufacturers are there to make money, and they know very well that it's the cheaper food which will sell well, because, of course, with the cost of living problem that we have at the moment, people will go for the cheap option. And they are onto a good thing. But Sainsbury's and Tesco have bucked that trend.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows, and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.